What's going on, everybody? Psychonius here with
Read.
and we are doing our day 3 of our ZigZag. It seems like I get a different person in here every time, but that's fine. We had Darvis with us the first time. Tubbsy was in here a couple weeks ago. We took last week off, 4th of July and whatnot. We were actually off on Wednesday. And we're going to go ahead and do our day 3.
It's Wednesday. It is Wednesday.
It is Wednesday. I'm going to go ahead and show off, so just for you mainly, and then for everybody else that's joining us, what we've done so far in our ZigZag tutorial. It is me, man. It's the face behind the name. So this is what we got so far. We have a ball and a platform. Very exciting. Not really, right? We can hit our play button, and we are able to have the ball move on the game start. And every time I click the mouse, it changes direction X and Z. Okay. We have 2 scripts. We have the player script, and very briefly, I'm going to go through what each of these lines does, just so we can remember. If you want the full experience of this, this is on YouTube. Yeah, I'm not turning on Lumi. First of all, I'm not going to be able to hear it. I'm not putting on the headset. And second of all, it's just going to interrupt. And this is going to YouTube. So add another ball. That'd be an interesting addition if we did version 2s and version 3s. We've had lots of great suggestions about things that we can do once we've actually made a full version of the game. And we can do like things like power-ups, being able to move vertically, like adding a jump, or letting the ball fall to a lower platform. These are all things that'd be pretty cool. Anyway, this first line gives us a variable for our speed. We can change that, and actually we have access to that in Unity, where that's the speed of the ball. Right now it's set to 5. We can change that to whatever we want. This tells us the direction that the ball is currently moving. Now, I like the Lance Armstrong version of the game. Wow, dog, wow. So if this X direction variable is true, it's moving in the X direction. If it's not true, meaning it's false, it's moving in the Z direction. Okay. We do nothing at the start for the ball, not yet. In the update, once a frame, we ask, hey, have we gotten a button push on the mouse? Have we pushed the mouse button? If we have, go ahead and change direction. That's basically saying, hey, change X direction to whatever it's not. So if it was true, it's changing it to false. If it's false, it's changing it to true. Okay. Here it's looking at that X direction variable. If it is true, go ahead and put some velocity in the X direction. That's what this this vector 3 right is. And then otherwise, meaning it's false, go ahead and let it move in the Z direction. That's vector 3 forward. So far so good, not too terrible. No, I don't expect people to remember this. There is definitely good cheat sheets available for Unity. This is just because I teach this every year, so I know the ins and outs of the functions, availability, the classes, and so forth. So if you don't, that's fine. This get component is very common. The vector 3 unit vectors are very nice. No idea what's happening, but I'm going to stick around for sure. Colin, thank you for sticking around. We're just doing some learning, some nice game development learning, and then maybe get some ideas for things that we can do later on. I do know we have a good handful of viewers, especially from Tubbsy's stream, that are actual computer science majors, so they do enjoy some of this as well. You better stay. Come on, Colin. I know it's summer, but no. So this is our camera follow script. We added this to our camera. We gave it a target to follow. Hey, that's the ball, follow the ball. We gave it a smoothing factor. Otherwise, it would be very like jittery and, we didn't want that, so we wanted to very smoothly follow the ball. And then we created a private offset, and that's because the camera is not like the exact same position as the ball. It's kind of hovering behind the ball. So the offset is measuring that distance and direction. We set that offset here. We just took the camera's position and subtracted the target's position. And if you guys know vector math, that's actually pretty easy. If you don't know vector math, I'm sorry. They stopped teaching that at high school. It bugs the crap out of me. It is very much a college level
Did
now.
they used to teach it in high school? What class?
We did basic 2D vectors and it was honors advanced algebra. So they at the high school I currently teach at now, it's like math 1, math 2, math 3. But we actually had names to the classes. So we had geometry, honors advanced algebra, trigonometry, and all that stuff.
Okay.
What's up, Tubbsy? What's the question? And as you're typing it, I'll go ahead and continue. This goes ahead and gets a temporary variable that is the target position. And then this is some nice math that's built in. Basically, it tells the camera where to be based on where the ball is and makes it smooth. This is called, this LERP function is linear interpolation. Don't need to know the details of that, but it's a very nice way to smoothly go to the next position. Could one make the marble do a specific maneuver, say a barrel roll? Yes, but you would have to provide it something like wings in order to see it actually do a barrel roll. If I just try to rotate the ball, we're not going to see it. It's a completely spherical and smooth ball with some reflecting light, as you can see, and we would not see that rotate. But yes, if we provided maybe some R-wing wings, and maybe a bunny can come up on the screen and with some text say do a barrel roll, then we could definitely. What's up, Colin? Cool. Today, while you guys are writing these excellent questions, I'm sure, it's a two-parter. This is going to be a lot longer, so this is actually our third part. I don't know how many parts this is going to be total, but we're going to do maybe about 30 minutes to an hour each time. If I were to code this myself, not teaching it, it takes about an hour and a half. So we're trying to slow it down and make sure that everybody can keep on. For sure. And when we're going to see a barrel roll, maybe when we do our add-ons. Okay. Right now we're going to create our platforms that are going to spawn at random intervals and allow us to go ahead and run over them and eventually do some collection. Okay. This is going to be in something called a prefab. So this is just some good folder organization. I'm going to create a new folder, and we're going to call this prefabs. Okay. A prefab is an object that is going to appear a lot in your game. So think of like old school Mario. They had a lot of coins or enemies. So if there's more than one Goomba, what you can do is make a Goomba, and then you create that and save it as a prefab. And then when you need to like make 5 extra ones in your level, you can just take the prefab and paste it everywhere. Then if you make a change to one, you can actually make a change to every single one, which is very nice. So we're going to do that with these platforms because they're going to be spawning in random places. But the first thing we're going to do is actually make one. And we're going to do so, and I'm going to put it about right there. Yes, W is actually very good. I wouldn't know. I'm not an energy drink person. Although I did have an energy drink a couple weeks ago, and I think my heart stopped. So let's go ahead and we're going to make another cube for this, and we're going to call this just a platform. And you can see it kind of just automatically went to the center of the screen. We're going to have to move that and adjust it. I'm going to go ahead and move it over here. Let's zoom it. Not too far. Too far. Okay. We need to line it up pretty much exactly with this, but I'm going to make it look a lot thinner. Let's go ahead and raise it. And instead of being 1 in the Y direction, I'm going to make it a 0.5. There we go. And then I'm going to make it a 2 by 2 in the X and Z directions. Now the ball itself is a radius. I think it's a diameter of 1.
Yeah, if I remember right.
Yes. So it is actually half the size of the platforms, which means when we start doing our diamonds, we put the diamond in the center of the platform. You have the opportunity to actually stay on the platform but miss the diamond. So it makes you try to like aim to the center of the platform, which is kind of cool. Now I'm going to try to manually find what the best place for this, knowing that eventually we're going to get some really nice numbers for our X, Y, and Z positions. But I'm going to try to get it as close as possible. And I want it to be exact at some point. You can see there's a little bit of distance there. Okay, it's probably a little high. Let's check the X. X is pretty good.
Is there a reason why we can't use the program to place it perfectly?
You can mathematically try to figure this out, but I didn't want to go through the math to it because I think that would be a little overwhelming for some people.
Okay.
But you could, in theory, use the 0-0 position of the starting platform and the fact that it's a 10 by 10 block, and then this position, knowing that it's a 2 by 2 block, and then do some calculations and figure that out. Or you can approximate and see that's almost 4, that's almost 6, and that's 0.25.
Okay.
So whichever one you think is easier. So I did 4, 6, and then 0.25 looks pretty good. So that looks pretty good. Okay. Galaxy Grenade and Push and Punch. Okay. Getting some good recommendations.
I've never had W.
You haven't had it?
No.
We had a couple of the powders on site.
Oh.
We were going to get the cans, but the cans like you can only get on like Amazon or their website, and they're pretty pricey. And then Tubbsy, didn't we like order them? And then when they got in, no, that was Ghost.
Yeah, that was Ghost. I do remember when we had Ghost here.
And then we ordered them in. We got them from Amazon, and like the shipping was terrible, and like they were all like messed up.
Yeah, I think the only ones we've had to sell were Ghost, Rockstar, and Monster.
Yeah. So let's go ahead. I'm going to add, because I want this to be the same color as the starting platform. If we remember what that is, that's under our materials. We have a platform and a player material. And we're just going to go ahead and make that the nice color. Okay. Ooh, cans. Okay. Ooh, piece of candy. All right, cool. So we have our platform. We didn't add a rigid body to this, which means it's going to just stay put. We don't have gravity right now activated on our player. So right now I should just be able to kind of go over the platform and nothing happens. Very cool. Okay. Now eventually we want to detect when the ball has entered and then exited the top of the platform. And right now if you see there's a nice little green wire frame around the edges of the box. I don't know if you guys can see that. If I zoom in enough, right?
Yeah.
Right along the edges, there's a green. So that is the box collider. I can even turn it off and you can see it disappear. Right? So that is the box collider for the platform itself. I want a box collider that I'm going to have just above the platform. And what that's going to do is when I exit it, we can detect when the ball exits that particular, we call it a trigger. And when that happens, the ball, we can tell the platform to do something special like fall, for example. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to do that by coming over here, right-clicking on this platform, and I'm going to create an empty object below it. And I'm going to call that a trigger. Okay.
Okay.
Are you sure?
Probably.
Okay. And you can see there's kind of like an indentation there. It's not exactly lined up with the rest of this stuff. And that's because it's a child object. So in programming, we have a parent-child relationship typically that we like to go through. So right now the parent object is the platform. The child object is the trigger. You already have a shaker, W. Nice. All right, so the trigger right now just has a transform on it, a position, a rotation, and a scale. And right now it's just in the middle of the platform. I'm going to add a box collider so that we can maneuver it, okay? And right now the box collider is exactly what it is on the platform, and that's not good. I'm going to go ahead and raise it up. Boom. So now you can see my box for the platform isn't exactly the dimensions of my platform. It goes above it. And that's because I want to detect when the ball goes through this collider, and then I want to do something about it. What's funny is if I leave it as is, what's up, Oscar Boss? I know you know this stuff. And I go to hit it, boom, and it's like hitting a wall. It's like an invisible wall. So for some of you guys that play games and you feel like, oh man, there's like an invisible wall, this is probably it. There's two reasons why that could be. One, they tried to set up a trigger that they didn't set it to a trigger, so it's actually just a nice wall. Or the actual box collider itself is probably bigger than what you're colliding with. So sometimes we say like we typically don't call it a box collider when you're playing games, but the hitbox, right? We say that the hitbox of that character is big or small, right? So that's exactly what we're talking about. So when you guys are playing your first-person shooters and you feel like you're hitting the guy and you're not hitting the guy, maybe the hitbox is too small. This is actually what we're looking at. When Tracy's playing, when Tubbsy's playing Fortnite and he's got a sniper and he can't hit anything, this is exactly what's happening. So what we're going to do is actually just hit this box there, and we're going to make it a trigger. W, legal name, yep. So now I'm going to be able to go through that box. And that's, okay, cool, but why? Why am I now allowed to go through? Why even have it there if I'm going to go through it in the first place? Well, I need something to detect. Okay. And that's going to be the detection. So we are going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead into my scripts, and we're going to make a script for that, and we are going to call that the platform trigger script. You guys probably can't read it. It's probably a little too tiny. Remember the naming convention we discussed in other episodes of this. Always start your classes with a capital letter. Never include spaces.
Why?
Great questions. Because the requirements for C# require that your class names need to start with a capital letter.
Okay.
And also the file names and the class names need to be the same. Okay. So there's technically nothing wrong with having a space in your file name, but you cannot have a space in your class name.
Okay.
So since they need to be the same, we just got to make sure that they don't have any spaces, and then you start with a capital letter. No more snipers on Fortnite? Why not? What's up?
What are we programming in?
This is C#.
Okay.
So if C++ and Java had a baby, it would be C#.
Okay.
And it's probably one of my more favorite languages, especially if you have a lot of experience. Python's a good starter language, but if you're trying to learn like the in or outs of computer science, C# is pretty good.
Okay.
And again, when we create the script in Unity, we get these start and update functions right off the bat. Okay, that's good. We're actually not going to use these, so we're going to get rid of them. I accidentally got rid of an extra curly brace. We got to make sure that that's there. What we're going to use is a function called, and it's going to return a void. This is going to be an on trigger, and you can see the autocomplete on trigger exit. Okay, on trigger. I'm going to get rid of the private. That's redundant, but there we go. So on trigger exit, it is a built-in function to this mono behavior class, and basically Unity knows that if that's available on the class and something exits the trigger, then run this function. Do whatever this thing tells us to do.
Oh.
Okay. We're gonna do basically two things. We're gonna make sure that the thing that's exiting my box collider right now is the player. We don't want, for example, if something were to happen where maybe a coin that is on top of the box and inside the trigger were to somehow magically fly out of the box, we don't want that to trigger this. So we want to make sure if the player exits the box, then do these things, and we can do that as well.
So we can't drop kick the coins.
You cannot drop kick the coins.
That's not
but
fun.
I mean, there is possibilities because I mean, game development is finicky, right? That for some reason, if your colliders are weird and like you accidentally hit a coin that the colliders aren't set correctly, it goes flying across the thing and maybe hits another coin that goes flying. Like, I don't want to have to deal with all that. So we're not going to do that. So this is a very simple if statement. And what's going to be nice is this other parameter. So this is a collider, this other variable. This is the thing that we that is exiting. This is the actual object that's exiting. And we can ask if this other object, and there's a few ways to do this. I think the better way to do this is to say, is it equal to the find, I would say find object of type, and we're going to put in the player. Okay, now this is kind of a lot, so let's go ahead and go through what this is doing. The only object that's going to have the player script on it is the player itself.
Is the ball.
Okay. So this is saying find object of type player. So should only be one. There can only be one Highlander, right? And it's going to be player. Now, if this other object, I probably have to put game object here because find object, this is probably returns a game object. Just to make sure we can actually equivalent these things. If the other's game object is the player game object, then do what we got to do.
Is it possible for there to be a glitch and for it to have more than one player in the system?
Yes, if you're a bad developer. Yes, if you're a bad developer. In the event that, I know Colin said earlier, can you have 2 balls on the screen? If you were to have like a 2-player thing, then you may have to change this up a little bit.
Okay.
Or maybe not, because it shouldn't, this will probably find the first one, so you probably do have to change this up a little bit. We would probably do something like a tag at that point. And we'll probably do something like a tag later. Because if there's 2 players playing, then we can tag them both as players, and then they can both qualify. So, yeah, damn, man. Yeah, sometimes you're just a bad developer, you know? Sometimes you're just terrible. So, cool. We got our condition. If the thing that is exiting the the box is the player, then we're going to, let's go ahead and make the platform fall. We're going to do this a little bit more specifically, but what we're going to do right now, just to show that it works, is I'm going to get the rigid body, and I'm going to use, hold on, it's going to be use gravity, and I'm going to set that to not false, but true. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, eventually we're going to have to attach a rigid body to this object. And actually, it's probably going to have to be the parent.
What's a rigid body?
A rigid body is something that you can attach to an object to give it physics. So to allow it to actually physically move, to collide with other things. If you wanted to allow gravity to work, that would be the rigid body. The problem is, and we're going to see, it's probably a good thing to kind of go through these errors that might occur, just to show what could actually happen. But I'm going to just instinctively say I want to turn gravity on here. Okay, and there's a few things that can happen, so let's go through the errors that might occur, because that's actually a good exercise. And I probably need to do this a lot more when I work with the kids. So I'm going to hit play, and right now we're fine, but as I go, we didn't. Oh, yeah, we didn't get anything on the console, okay? We didn't get any errors, nothing happened. What happened? Well, we didn't actually attach the script. We wrote the script, and we didn't say where to go. We didn't tell it where to go. So that's fine. We're going to go ahead and add the platform trigger script there. Okay, we added it to our trigger object. That's important, because the trigger object is the thing that has the box collider trigger on it.
Okay.
Hey, that's mean. I'm just kidding. So let's try that again. I expect to get an error here, and we still didn't get an error. Interesting. Okay.
Is it supposed to give you an error when you're supposedly supposed to fall off because nothing's happening?
I think I'm supposed to get an error because this runs, and there is no rigid body.
Ah.
So right now, and this is pretty typical, right now I expected to get an error, and this is actually a good thing because this is acting in a way that I'm not expecting. I expected to get an error, so now I'm saying, well, is this even running? Is this even running correctly? So we do a very good debugging technique. I'm going to go ahead and just simply print, hello there, okay? And you can put whatever you want in these things, but basically I'm going to check to see if this runs. And if this runs, I should expect hello there to come up in the console. Okay. So I saved that, right? Okay. If it doesn't show up, then I know there's something wrong with the trigger. Okay, we got our hello there. Okay, so good. We entered the trigger, but now this isn't running correctly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move this, and I'm going to move it down here. Now, if this prints, then I know that this condition is working. Okay, if it doesn't print, then I know it's not working.
Okay.
Okay, so these are very good debugging techniques.
Very simple, too.
Yeah, exactly. You literally just put print statements everywhere. Just don't forget to delete them. And there we go. So it didn't print. So now I know, since it didn't print, and I know this trigger works, I know that this condition is returning false because I'm not going into this this if statement. So what could be happening here? Well, maybe this find object of type player. Let's go ahead and make sure that that's not null. So let's go ahead and say print find object of type player. And I'm going to go ahead and say, what is that equal to null? Null is a very special, basically a 0. You can think of it as a 0. But is the player empty? Is it empty? Like my soul. No.
Like my soul.
Okay. So hopefully that returns a false, meaning that there is a player. It's not empty. Okay, false. Good. So there is a player. Good. So we're not getting a null reference exception. So somehow this is still returning false. So maybe we should just say something like a game object there. Maybe this is returning a player type and not a game object type. So in Unity, everything is going to have a class or an object type. That's why I did the other.gameObject here, because other was technically a collider. But I wanted its game object type, so I went in and did a .gameObject. So maybe what's happening here is the find object of type player is returning a player. And if you look and I hover over that, and you see right next to that purple cube, it does in fact say player. So it was comparing a game object to a player.
Okay.
And it doesn't know how to do that, so it just returned false.
Okay.
So now that I did that, and instead I hit this game object, and you can see now it says game object there, capital G. So now we're comparing two game objects. Let's get it, Reed. What's up, Josh? Reed came in learning today.
I've never done anything with Unity.
So, we're going to go ahead and do that again. And okay, there's the error I was expecting. Cool. So we're good. We're missing a component. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. So we fixed that, and we do have an issue now on what was line 12. And we're going to go ahead and figure out what's going on. Oh, he's got a question for Josh now. So it says, missing component exception. There is no rigid body attached to the trigger game object, but a script is trying to access it. So what's happening now is the trigger itself, the script, is trying to access a rigid body on this inspector. We don't see a rigid body on the inspector. So that's the error that we're getting. You probably need to add a rigid body to the game object trigger. So we could add a rigid body here, and let's see what actually happens. I'm honestly not sure what's going to happen, but we could add a rigid body here. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and turn gravity off so it doesn't fall at the start.
Okay.
And eventually what should happen, what we think should happen, is we turn the gravity on. Maybe since the child turns gravity on, the parent will fall with it. But I think what will actually happen is just this empty object that contains this empty box is going to fall. So let's go ahead and see. Exactly. Okay. So if we paused it and we tried to find where this trigger is, it's way down here.
Okay.
So the box fell, but not the actual platform. So that's not entirely what we want. Okay. What we do want is the entire thing to fall. So the rigid body can't be on the trigger. It's got to be on the parent. So let's go ahead and get rid of this one. And instead of it being on the trigger, we're going to put it on the parent. And I'm going to show you what it looks like to begin with. We're going to go ahead and go rigid body. And we're going to leave gravity on just to test if gravity's on for the platform. Does it fall? There it goes. Cool. So we're going to turn it off. All right. But again, if we try to do this again, the trigger, the script is expecting the rigid body to be on the child. So we're still getting that error. Okay. And that's no bueno. So we do need to do is we need to ask the parent if it's there. So we're going to say transform.parent.getComponent. Okay. So we can get the parent object. What does that mean? Well, since we're on trigger, the parent is platform.
Okay.
And platform has a rigid body. So there we go. Let's go ahead and give that a save. And we're going to go ahead and play. Now this might be a little too quick. Okay, no, that's actually pretty good. I expected it to be a little too fast. But I think that looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. We have the start of our platform. I think this is a good time to actually prefab this. And that way we can make additional copies of this. We're going to create a platform spawner. And we're going to show how we're going to actually randomly place platforms in our scene.
Okay.
But that's a good start. Yes, the prefab. Do you have any experience in Unity? So right now the prefabs is empty. Right, my prefabs folder. Making a prefab is... all words are made up. So, I mean, it stands for a prefabrication. It's like, you know, if you ever got into 3D printing or machining parts, like you're fabricating parts, and they call it fabbing. A prefab is, I don't know, before, I don't know, because it stands for before. But let's go ahead and throw it in the prefab. I'm going to click on the platform, and I'm going to drag it into the prefabs folder, and it turns blue in the text. The text turns blue, and that lets us know that that is indeed a prefabbed object. So now what we can do is if we wanted to just kind of manually do this, we can go into the prefabs and click and drag it onto the screen, and we can actually do as many of these as we want.
How fun.
And they all behave in the same exact way.
Okay.
But we're not going to do it that way. We're going to programmatically add these. You can 3D print, though. You can. Can you design? That'd be... I've never tried to design anything in... I know your brother has. But I've never actually tried to design anything in... When I say your brother, I looked at Reed. Reed's brother has designed.
Like, they can't see us.
Yeah. Yeah. let's go ahead and figure out what we're going to do here. We're going to create our platform spawner. You're a pretty good designer. Very cool. I'd like to see what you can create. And we're going to do a empty object here. This is going to be our platform spawner.
Did we show the viewers the end product of this game in the
Yes.
beginning? Okay.
In the beginning of episode 1.
Okay.
So right now, added the platform spawner to the middle of the screen. I'm just going to go ahead and add it to 0, 0, 0. So it's going to be in the center of my starting platform here, if I can find it. There we go. So it's in the middle here. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have a position in which we're going to spawn our next platform. Okay. And we can see from our first platform that it's at position X is 4 and Z is 6. Y is always going to be the same at this point until we start doing extra levels vertically.
Okay.
But we're going to do 4 and 6. Now, some might be thinking, well, what if I wanted to put it on this right side? What if I wanted to start it here? It should be as simple as making this a 6 and a 4. And indeed, it is.
Okay.
So we know that the first position of our platform is going to be either 4, 6 or 6, 4.
Okay.
Making it X and Z. With hopefully we understand that Y is always going to be 0.25.
We have a question. What type of game are we making?
What type of game are we making? We are making a simple, it's almost a runner style game. In the Temple Run, or what's the one with he has a machine gun backpack.
Oh.
I forget that one. That one's fun. That one's a lot of fun. But a very simple version of that, for sure. Yeah, so just being something that technically has infinite potential, right? You can go as far as you can until you physically get a game over and then start again. So that is typical characteristics of a runner style game. Jetpack Joyride. Yeah, thank you. Honestly, I thought of it and then very briefly out of the corner of my eye saw you put it in the chat. But yes, Jetpack Joyride. Obviously a 3D version of that. But yeah. And then being able to collect some coins for points, and then some power-ups to do other things as well. And right now we're going to use only the built-in shapes in Unity, but eventually you can kind of import very cool-looking things and actually make it look good. But the aesthetics will be certainly later. We're going to get the mechanics down first.
For sure.
So cool. We have a platform spawner. It's in the middle. We're going to need a script for our platform spawner. So we're going to go back in here. And again, it's just going to be platform spawner. I tell my students you should always name it something that... Oh, I did spell it right. Okay. Something that actually makes sense, right? You don't want it to just be... I had a student that just honestly named these variables in very weird ways. And I'm like, well, what does that variable do? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, that's kind of the problem, right? So you need to make sure that you name things that make sense as to what in this case, the class, the platform spawner, what is this going to do? It's going to spawn platforms. Don't be creative, all right? And most scientists are not. Yeah, Jose 1 and Jose 2? No. And my favorite one to go to is there is a very large radio telescope. Actually, this might have been the one that just collapsed, but it's in Chile. And because Chile has one of the highest mountain ranges in South America, and they use this to look at things in outer space, and it detects radio waves, and it's a very large radio telescope. Do you know what they call it?
What?
The Very Large Radio Telescope.
You know, it works.
All right. Scientists are the most unimaginative lot.
It reminds me of what you were telling me yesterday about Disney shows. The Star Wars series.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Dave Filoni and the way he names the Star Wars series shows. This is the show about the Clone Wars. What are you going to call it? Clone Wars. Yeah. Be simple. Can't wait for Ahsoka, though. Oh, it's going to be so good. Anyway. Platform spawner. Okay. First thing we need to do is have access to what it's going to spawn.
Okay.
And it's going to spawn those platforms. So what are we going to do? We're going to create a serialized field because it's going to be set in Unity. This is a game object. All prefabs are going to be game object types. And we're going to name it platform. Okay. What does that do? It's one line. It's very simple. I'm going to go ahead and save that to show what that does. As we go back to Unity and let it load. The platform spawner needs to be added to the object. Okay. And now when I go here, we see we have a platform empty box that we can populate.
Okay.
And we're going to populate that with the prefab. This is actually very important. One of the issues that I came across when doing this with my students is when I say add the and I will show them add the platform from the prefabs. Okay. They actually add the platform that's on the scene, and that's a no-no. So don't do the platform from the scene. We are doing the one from the prefabs because if we do it from here, there's going to be some issues and it's going to crash. So we don't do that. We're going to do it from the platform. So now it has an idea of what it's going to spawn.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and this platform that's on the scene, I'm going to go ahead and uncheck it. I'm not going to delete it, but I'm going to hide it. So it's still there. I can always repopulate it if I need to, but I don't need it on the screen at this point. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to programmatically place a platform at 6.254. Okay.
Okay.
And let's go ahead and do that at the start of the game. That's what we're going to do. We are going to use the instantiate function. And we're going to do a platform. And there's a few different things we can do here. I believe we're just going to do that. We don't need to set a parent. We don't need to set a rotation. But just going an instantiate platform, I think, is good to go. And we're going to go ahead and save that real quick as a game object new platform. Okay. So what did we do here? We're creating an access to a new platform that we're going to create or instantiate. Okay. Big fancy word for create. Okay. Mm-hmm. We instantiate objects. We instantiate classes. Okay. The last thing we need to do is actually give it the correct position. So the new platform's transform.position needs to be, let's go ahead and make it a new vector 3. And we can say 6f, comma 0.25f, comma 4f. Okay.
What does the F stand for?
Great question. The F stands for, that's C#'s way of telling the program that this is a floating type number. Floating type numbers have decimal points.
Okay.
So there's basically two different kinds of numbers in program. You can have integers, which is whole numbers, and then you can have non-integers or decimals, and those are usually floats. Okay. And in some instances, you can have doubles, and the only real difference between a double and a float is the way it's saved in memory. But okay. For all intents and purposes, it's the same thing. What did you call me? I called you Josh. Okay. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and save this at the start of the game. Now, as we go back to Unity, we can see that there's no platform there. And actually, I think, yeah, it's going to be right there. It should just instantiate a new platform. So this one should still be hidden, but there's going to be a new platform there. So there we go. See platform clone, and there it goes. So there's a platform clone. There's the original one that we hid. So cool. We instantiated it in the correct place. Okay. Here's where it's going to get a little bit tricky. It's tricky. Okay. Basically, we need to determine a good starting point. And we're going to do that by using actually 4f, 0.25f, 4f. And then when we instantiate a new platform, we're simply going to add 2 to either the x direction or the z direction. And we're going to do that randomly. And that should give us a nice zigzag pattern. Now, this is fine for now, but later on, if we were to try to make the game harder by, say, making the platform smaller, this is going to break. Okay. Because the only reason why we're doing 2F, we're adding 2F, is because that's the width of the platform. Okay. So it will break at some point, but that's fine. We're not going to deal with that now. We're going to create a private, if I can spell, private vector 3 start position, I guess, start POS, and we're going to say vector, or new vector 3. We're going to say 4f, 0.25f, and 4f. Okay. Cool. And at this point, we need to try to create, let's go ahead and try to create, say, like 20 platforms. I'm going to do this by saying, let's create another private integer variable saying the number of platforms on the screen at any one time is going to be 20 platforms. Okay. And that doesn't have an f because that is a whole number. It's an integer. We're not going to do this. Let's do it in the start. Why not? Let's go ahead and say 4. And for those computer scientists in here, this should be relatively common for you. But in order to do something repeatedly, we put something in a for loop. And the way we do this is we say, let's go ahead and start counting at the number 0. I'm going to keep my count below num platforms. Look, it knows how to autocomplete for me. And how am I going to increment? By 1. So let's go through that much more slowly. We're creating a counter variable here called I. Typically we use I. Okay? And we're going to start it at 0. And as long as this I is less than the number of platforms, which is 20, we're going to do the stuff inside the curly braces. And we're going to do this repeatedly. After we finish a loop, that's what that's called, a loop. When we finish an iteration, what are we going to do? We're going to add, this means add 1. We're going to add 1 to I.
Okay.
So start at 0, do the stuff. Add 1. Now I is 1. Is 1 less than number of platforms? Yes. Do it again. Add 1 again. It's going to be 2. Is it still less than number of platforms? Yes. Do it again.
Okay.
And it's going to keep doing that until it reaches 20. Is 20 less than 20? Well, no. Right? It's not less than or equal to 20. It's just less than. So when that happens, we're going to stop. And we're going to go after, or basically going to go to whatever this line is. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever that line is going to be.
Okay.
In this case, we're going to end the function. Okay? So at the start, we should, in this case, it's going to add it all to the same location. We don't want that. We are going to go ahead and I would say, let's have, we are going to instead set it to, we're going to go ahead and go start position. I want you to add, so add equals, a new vector 3 to yourself. We're going to add 2f, 0f, 0f. And basically every time we're going to add 2 to the x direction, this is going to make a single line of platforms going off in the x direction.
Okay.
That way we don't have to do this. We're going to set the new position equal to start position. Okay. So very quickly, let's go through what every iteration does. Start position is going to increase itself by 2 in the x direction. We're going to create a new platform, and then we're going to set it to that position. Go back to the top, or change the start position to another 2 in that direction. It's going to keep adding and adding and adding, and we're going to place new platforms in those positions. So if we did this right, we should get a line of 20 in the x direction. Boom. Look at them go, and they should all fall.
Very cool.
Okay. Very neat, but again, it only does 20. Okay, so we need to do this repetitively, okay? And we need to make sure that the platform itself can die. We're going to destroy the platforms. If we just keep the platform 1, it's going to kind of be hard to keep track of the number of platforms that we have on, that the ball has the ability to run over at any one time. So basically what we're going to do is after the platform falls for a certain amount of time, we're just going to go ahead and tell the, sorry, not the ball, the platform. Then we're going to tell the platform to destroy itself.
Okay.
That's kind of easy to do. We are going to do that by the platform trigger itself. Okay. And remember, this kind of triggers the fall. What we're going to say is we're going to, what's the function for that? We are going to...
Don't ask me.
I know, I'm trying to think. There's a special function, like it's kind of like instantiate, but a little bit different. We are going to invoke. We're going to invoke a new thing called destroy platform, and we're going to make that, okay? So it's a very quick way to kind of, we need to probably do this, say, after, I don't know, 3 seconds. Okay? So what we're going to do is very quickly just create a destroy platform function, platform. I probably have to mess with that a little bit. And this will, when we tell the invoke to do it, it's basically saying, okay, go ahead and run this, but wait 3 seconds before you do.
Okay.
And then what we're going to do is just simply destroy, it's going to be actually transform.parent, transform.parent. We want to destroy the platform, not the trigger. Okay, if we just destroy the trigger, the platform still exists.
Yes.
So we don't want to do that. This probably needs to be a string, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay. So destroy platform. Well, what is that? That's this. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to run it after 3 seconds. So go ahead and start the fall, wait 3 seconds, then destroy. Nice little quick way to get that done. And hopefully, when we see the platform clones, we're going to go ahead and give that a tap. Oh, yeah, that should be fine. So we should start seeing the platform clones start to disappear from the left side. Hopefully.
Okay.
Hopefully.
In theory.
And they're not doing it. Okay, we are getting a bunch of errors. So let's see. Component, if you want to destroy the game object, please call destroy on the game object. Instead, destroying the transform is not allowed. So we can't just do transform.parent. Probably need to do .game object. Let's give that a shot. That's probably the easier way to do it. So we were trying to destroy the transform. Again, you can't really destroy a component. You want to destroy the actual game object. So everything that is on the platform is going to end up destroying it. There we go.
Yay!
Okay. So they're starting to delete themselves. Very good. Okay. Cool. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to keep track of how many of these exist. And we're going to do so by the platform spawner having a... so the number of platform, right? We should call this max number of platforms. It's not control R. Yeah, it is. There we go. I'm gonna say max num platforms. And what I did is when I did the control R twice, it changed everywhere it existed because I renamed it.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd have to type it there and then find all the other places I typed it.
And that would take forever.
Yeah, exactly. So Visual Studio has a nice built-in thing for that. 2 control R's gets that done because I'm actually going to call this exactly. Why is it so smart? All right, private number of platforms, and we're going to start that off by being 0. And every time we create a platform, we're going to add 1 to it, and we're only going to create platforms as long as num platforms is less than 20. Okay, and we're not going to do that in start. We're going to do that in update. Because remember, start only runs at the start of the game. We want that to check every single frame. So let's go ahead and move this to update. Okay. And instead of doing a for loop with this, because update itself runs once a frame, so we don't want to have like a loop in a loop. That would just be too much.
Okay.
Too much to do. So let's get rid of all that. And we're going to say every frame, I want you to check to see if the number of platforms is less than the max number of platforms. Okay. And if you are, let's go ahead and make a new one. There we go. So every frame, check to see if the number of platforms you currently have is less than the max number of platforms. If it is, go ahead and do all that stuff we did to create a new one. But don't forget, we're going to need to, dude, the new version of Visual Studio is so smart. We're going to need to increase the number of platforms so we can keep track of it.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. We can go ahead and give this a shot. Now, this is going to be very quick. It's not going to be instantaneous. We might be able to see, like, it cascade the creation instead of just pop.
Okay.
There, you see it kind of cascaded a little bit there?
Okay.
Because it did it once a frame. We can actually slow that down to make it look a little bit nicer. We can have a variable called spawn time, private float spawn time. And like how often should we allow it to check to see if if it needs to make a new platform? Maybe, I don't know, 0.2 seconds, right? So like 200 milliseconds might be a good one. And then let's go ahead and have a clock, something that keeps track of how much time has passed. Private float spawn clock, and that's going to be 0. So go ahead and create a platform if the number of platforms is less, and the spawn clock is greater than the spawn time. Okay, if enough time has passed. So we have the spawn clock that we're going to keep track of how much time has passed. If enough time has passed, let's go ahead and make a new one. Along with, are we allowed to make a new one? So both of those conditions have to be true.
Okay.
Are there 20 on the thing? And then are we going to spawn? But we're not actually adding anything to the clock right now, so let's go ahead and spawn clock. We're going to increase it by time.delta time. And that's a built-in variable that says how much time has passed since the last frame was called. Okay. Once we do create the new platform, we cannot forget to, dude, it's so smart, reset the spawn clock. I'm actually kind of amazed about how much this knows. But yes, we do need to reset the spawn clock. Not only increase the number of platforms, but reset the spawn clock. Otherwise, spawn clock will always be greater than spawn time. And then once the first 0.2 of a second has passed, it'll just create a wall.
Yeah.
Okay, so we reset the clock. Let's go ahead and see. This should cascade a little bit more smoothly. And we can always, there we go. See?
Okay.
But you'll notice it doesn't create any new ones even though they're starting to destroy. And the reason why that is, I don't know if we can figure it out in the chat, but we are increasing the number of platforms, which is good, but we never can get num platforms back down to underneath. So what occurs that should tell us to lower the number of platforms is when we destroy the platform.
Okay.
So we can actually do that. There's a few things that we have to do. We have to realize that this num platforms is private, so it's not accessible from the platform trigger, and that's what actually destroys the platform.
Okay.
So we're going to just create a nice little public void platform destroyed. Nice little function that can be accessed anywhere. And then we're simply just going to num platforms minus minus. And that does the same thing, except it decreases.
Okay.
Decreases by 1. Okay. Very nice. That's going to be called from the platform trigger. Going a little quick here, but basically this is just a public function that can be available anywhere because the platform spawner doesn't know itself that a platform was destroyed.
Yeah.
The only thing that knows that is the platform trigger because that did the destroy platform action. So cool, destroy the platform, but before we actually do the destruction, let's go ahead and find the object of type platform spawner, right? And we're gonna destroy, or platform destroyed. Sorry, platform destroyed. So what does this do? After the 3 seconds, run the destroy platform code. Okay, remember it's falling for 3 seconds. Go ahead and find the object of type platform spawner. There's only one platform spawner in the game.
Okay.
It's gonna come over here, and it's gonna run its platform destroyed method, which it's going to lower the number of platforms. So the next time it updates, this may be less than 20 now.
Okay.
Okay. And then after it does that, it's going to go ahead and destroy itself. So let's go ahead and see.
And now shouldn't this create like an infinite?
Yes, this should just be an infinite row in the X direction. We got to get the zigzag part of it. So it should stop once it reaches 20. And then when it starts, you can see it's starting to increase itself now. When a platform destroys itself, another one is created.
Okay.
Not too shabby. Okay, we're almost there for today. We want to get the zigzag part in it. We want to start doing in the Z direction as well.
Okay.
That'll be our last spot for today. What do we have, 50 minutes? Look at that. I think that takes about 10 more minutes.
Probably.
So we'll a good a little bit of hour. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Cool. So we have a lot of private variables here. They're all necessary. What we do need to figure out is, randomly speaking, every time we create a new platform, we want to basically have a 50-50 shot of spawning one in the X direction or the Z direction. And right now we're simply adding it to the X direction.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is use Unity's built-in, it has a random dot range. Okay. Is that the right one I want to use? Let me see. I don't know, man.
I don't know, man. I just work here.
I just work here. Random.value is fine. So random.value. Now random.value, if we look at what that is, if I hover over it, it's a float. And it gives back a number between 0 and 1.
Okay.
Okay, so a decimal number, a float number. And basically what we're going to do is say, well, if this number is less than 0.5, then I want to do one thing. If it's greater than 0.5, it's going to do the other thing.
Okay.
And that's how we're going to simulate randomness in the 50-50 shot, right? So if this number is less than 0.5f, okay. No, we don't want a semicolon. That's my bad. Then sure, let's go ahead and add it in the X direction.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put the curly braces not to confuse people. I know a lot of my students are like, well, do you not need curly braces? And I'm like, I don't want to explain it. Otherwise, meaning it was greater than 0.5f. Remember, it has a 50-50 shot of being under 0.5f or, oh. Well, thanks, Tubbsy. yeah, with the 10 minutes left, go ahead and complete your predictions. Remember, if it's above 0.5f, I'm going to go ahead and start position equal new vector 3. It kind of already knows. This is going to be 0f, 0f, and then 2f in the z position.
Okay.
So this is the x position, y, z. This is the x position, y, z. So this will add it in the x. This will add it in the z. It doesn't really matter which one it does. That's going to be the starting position of the new platform we instantiate.
And it's 2F because the platform we created is
2 units wide.
Okay.
Yes. So again, this will break if we decide to make the game harder by maybe later on, like if you're a minute into your game and you want to make the platform smaller, you can do so, but this is going to break because it's expecting 2F.
Okay.
So the platforms are going to start having gaps and gaps and gaps, which we don't want. But that should be, again, random.value, somewhere between 0 and 1. Let's go ahead and save that. So every time we're going to add a platform, it's going to pick a random direction. Let's go ahead and see. Oh, and it did it from the middle. All right. You know what? Let's go back and figure out why.
That was fun to watch.
It was fun to watch. And the main reason why, sometimes these are, what's the Bob Rossian thing to say? These are little happy accidents, okay? It's a very Bob Rossian thing to say. If you guys can see what happened, I can see it immediately. But again, I have experience in this. Can you see? Just based on what I wrote?
No.
Okay. So here I increased the starting position plus equals by this amount. Here I simply set it equal to.
Oh.
I wasn't a happy accident. I was war frustration. Okay, we've been over this. So instead of increase, yes,
that took me a second.
It took you a second. So instead of increasing starting position by the 2 in the z direction, I set it equal to 002f, which is inside the main platform.
Oh,
which said, no, we
yeah.
both have box colliders. We're going to just explode. So that's not good. We're going to need a plus equals. So if it, and again, it randomly said that position. If we, I'd say randomly, the first platform, we may not have noticed it at first. If the randomly selected one's in the x direction and then it went back, we'd been like, what the hell happened there?
Yeah.
It just happened to be that the first one happened to be the z direction, so we got to see it right off the bat. So a good little happy accident, like the Tubsy apparently. And let's see. There we go. And look, that looks pretty random, right?
Yeah.
Cool. And then more of the platforms are going to spawn. Very nice.
Have we set it so the ball falls off if you mess up? Or
It
not
does
yet?
not. That'll be next
Okay.
time. So the way we're going to do that next time, I'll give you a little bit of a preview, is we're going to have what's called array. And if you guys know your math and your geometry, what is array? Well, it is a arrow, basically, a one-directional arrow. And we're going to do that, and we're going to make the ray look down. But think of it as a camera that looks down from the ball. And it's going to look infinitely far away.
Okay.
And as long as it sees a platform, Charles, as long as it sees a platform, not directly under it, like in its line of sight, infinitely far away in the negative y direction, then it's fine. What we're going to do is as soon as it doesn't see a platform in its y direction, negative y direction, we're just going to turn gravity back on. Look, it does have, I think it does. Let's see. Yep, it has a rigid body. The same way we did with the platform, we're going to simply turn the rigid body gravity back on.
Okay.
And we're going to do some other things about the game. So, like, for example, the camera needs to stop following. Platforms need to stop spawning. We're going to have to do some UI.
Okay.
And that's going to be all stuff later on. But in general, that's going to be the start of it. So that's been an hour. Look at that. Right on the nose. So that's a pretty good spot there. Hopefully, people were able to. I know there's some good jokes going on in there, but if there were any questions that need to be asked, hopefully people understood. Otherwise, this will be on our YouTube. We will go ahead and publish this on Twitch as well, so you can rewatch it. If you're someone that is definitely interested in learning some Unity, hopefully this was a good Unit 3 tutorial here. So next time around, we are going to do a little bit more of the ball control, the game controller. We're going to create our game manager. and allow it to do its thing, and then probably maybe we can get some coins in there as well.
Okay.
And then the UI is going to be a nice little day-long thing that we're going to do. But yeah, anything that you had to...
Just if you want to check out our other social media, it should be linked in our link tree, which should be in our Twitch bio, but it's also all of our usernames are Reflection OFC.
Of course. And pinned in the top, the Tubbs you got there, the predictions for our next week's Amiibo tournament. We did the North League yesterday. Thank you, Sora. They did a very good job, and God, I can't wait for next week. That was a lot of fun to kind of make. I made my prediction, and I was kind of upset. I was telling Reed when it was going down that I got the most right, but I didn't win because I didn't predict the winner.
Yeah.
So I was kind of sad. But go ahead and make sure you get your predictions in. That should be fun. And then catch it next week at 6:30, next Tuesday at 6:30 PDT. And yeah, this has been fun. Get ready for this next week as well. Probably around this time, I'd say we're gonna aim for like the 11:30 in the morning mark on Wednesdays for this. And then when do you stream?
Friday in the afternoon.
For sure, Friday in the afternoon. Tubbsy should be on at 2 p.m. And yeah, we're gonna keep this rolling. And I think we're gonna do a rerun of last night's Amiibo at 5. Last night's Amiibo tournament at 5. So stick around for that. All right. Thank you guys. See ya.